Hey guys. Okay, so those of you that saw our Instagram stories on the weekend would know that I actually did a 35-kilometre charity walk from Sandgate through to the Botanic Gardens. Now, yes, before anyone asks, the blisters were real. Like, today's Thursday, had to think about that for a second. Today's Thursday, and today was the very first day that I actually contemplated putting the running shoes back on and going for a run. Yeah, I'd said contemplated. Didn't happen. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Anyway, I did that walk with Ben and Cara from Bounce Financial. Shout out to those guys. But as we're walking along, we were talking about one of the jobs that I recently did for one of their clients. Now, just a bit of backstory. The client held the property or had the property and they'd held it for a while and they were like, look, we don't know what to do with this property. Do we do a lipstick reno and hold? Do we do a more major reno and hold? Do we extend the units and hold? Do we do a subdivision and hold? Or do we do any of those options and just on-sell it? Like, we don't know what to do here. Can you help give us some information? And I was like, oh, can I give you some information? Let me shred this property. Like, let me go full detective mode on it and see what I can find. So yeah, I did that for their clients, sent it through to them. They obviously read it. As we're walking along, they're like, man, and I am paraphrasing here, but they're just like, man, that is messed up. How much stuff could actually go wrong? Like, if you knew all this stuff or if people knew all this stuff, no one would ever buy property. And I'm like, guys, like that was a tame review. That was like a mid-level assessment. In terms of the stuff I can find some messed up stuff. And what I said to you in that email doesn't even compare, like it pales in comparison. So anyway, through that conversation, it really highlighted to me that I probably should do more videos, let's just say, on case studies. So I definitely don't want to go into specifics. I'm not going to sit here and talk about suburb names or street names or any of that sort of stuff. But I thought, you know what, at least for this week's video, maybe a few more videos in the future, I could give you guys some insight into some of the case studies or situations I come across during my week. So I can hopefully open people's eyes to just what can go wrong and how much town planning can mess with your hopes and dreams, let's just say, and really screw with your future renovation, new house build, all of that stuff plans. And hopefully in the process, encourage people to ask more questions before they purchase properties or before they make investment decisions and all of that sort of stuff. So today's video, what I want to cover off is a case study that I did earlier this week. Now, before I ran out the door to my meeting, I quickly scribbled down the 9 little things that I mentioned to this guy. So I went through a heap of different stuff, but there were 9 key points that I came up with. And again, just like that other example I was talking about with Ben and Cara, it's kind of like a mid-level thing. So it's not one of those assessments where you're like, damn, you dodged a bullet. Like there is some major stuff with this property. It was one of those assessments where I was like, yeah, I found a couple of things to raise. I'm happy with my efforts here. So first and foremost, the very first thing I did was analyze the surrounding, well, one of the first things I should probably say, was analyze the surrounding zoning to work out what could happen in the future and then analyze the previous approvals. So go to Development Eye, look at the previous approvals or current applications. And one of the very first things that popped up was Mackie D's, McDonald's. So what I discovered was one of the properties to the rear actually has just had an application lodged for a McDonald's over it. And I was like, oh, yeah, the zoning character residential, probably not expecting to see a Mackie D's pop up next door. That's going to be a good one to mention to him. So yeah, mention that. Side comment. Oh, I need coffee. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, side comment, I had a look at these Mackie D plans and I feel like I got a glimpse into the future of McDonald's and where we're going as society. And I don't know whether I was impressed or disturbed. So on one hand, the main thing that sort of grabbed me is they only had 2 general customer parking bays. So you know McDonald's, there's generally these massive car parks around. The future McDonald's only has 2 general car parks. Like, part of me sat there and I went, I'm impressed. McDonald's is iterating. They can see Uber Eats has changed the game. Uber Eats and the affiliates, they're going to continue, or associated companies, they're going to continue to change the game. We don't need those car parking bays anymore. We need drive-throughs. Like, I was impressed. I was like, I love the fact that you're responding to your market in a real quick, efficient's the best way to say it, way. Like, love it. The other part of me was like, but what about the kids' playgrounds and the kids' parties? Like, I remember, I think it was like a year or 2 ago, I was babysitting my nephew. He was like 2 or 3 years old at the time. And I don't have kids, so I don't have a house that's set up for kids. So we usually go out to parks and all that sort of stuff. But it was pouring rain. So I was like, well, a park's not going to work. So I decided to take him to a McDonald's play centre. So they had the tunnels and just a basic play equipment, but he had the time of his life. So I'm like, oh no, if there's no car parks, it means there's going to be no play equipment. Oh, the kids aren't going to experience that. And I remember back to my childhood, and this is going to sound so lame because I can already see where it's going to go. But children's playground, what am I trying to say? Children's parties. Like, I remember so much of my youth, not so much my youth, so many of my parties of my youth is what I'm trying to say, was spent at McDonald's with the ice cream cakes. And do you remember going into the freezer, the excursion into the freezer? Yeah, I still don't know why we got so excited over that. And I actually sit there today and go, workplace health and safety, that's not so good, is it? But anyway, the memories is the point I'm trying to say. These next generation of kids, if these McDonald's take over the world, they're not going to have those memories. I'm kind of disappointed by that. But yeah, like I said, mixed emotions. Anyway, I'm getting on a side tangent here. The point is, I was like, dude, do you know that there's a McDonald's going in next door? Like, at the moment, it is a non-residential site next door, but they operate standard business hours McDonald's. Let's be real, more than likely it's going to be 24-hour, and you have lower turnover for the existing use that's there. There'll be a higher turnover with the new McDonald's. Like, just something you got to consider there. Now, point number 2, the crossover. So I had a look on the Street View image, and what I came across, or what I found, was like a real informal type of crossover. Like, this crossover was giving me, I'm just looking around seeing if I can see one in front of me, but this crossover was giving me real home handyman, dodgy, popped up overnight type vibes. So the curb had the definite step down in profile, so you could clearly see that the curb had been shaped, but there was nothing else to allude to the fact that there was a crossover there. So the grass strips on either side of the footpath, they were fully intact. There was no disturbance there type thing. There was no tyre tracks. There was no concrete there. So I'm looking at this thing going, I wonder if that's actually approved. Like, did they get a crossover permit to actually set this crossover up in the first instance? So, which then led me to go, okay, well, hold on a sec. This guy was planning to do a granny flat out the back. I was like, oh, when you actually go to apply to do some other stuff, is that going to trigger council to go, yeah, so that little crossover there shouldn't be there. So you're going to have to remove that, and you're going to have to put a proper crossover on the other alternate frontage. Probably should mention it was a corner lot. So yeah, they're potentially going to go, we don't like this access way here because it's onto a major road. There's bus stops, power poles, all intersections, all of these other factors you've got to consider. We want you to put the crossover on the other side of the property. So I was like, so if that actually becomes a reality, and if that's what you need to, I'm just getting distracted because there's a guy going at record speed down the road on a scooter. He survived. He made it. Good on him. Anyway, push on. The crossover. So I was like, if they make you move this crossover, relocate this crossover, can you physically fit cars parking between the front boundary and the house on that other side? And can you live with that alternative? I really should have thought this through more. I'm going to jump around a lot. Probably should mention it was a pre-purchase assessment. So I'm being super critical, really risk adverse because someone's about to hand over money here. Very different conversation if someone owns the property already, because then you've got less on the line, so to speak. So yeah, I was like, okay, if that's the scenario, if you're forced to move your cars around the other side, can you live with that? Are you cool with that? Can you physically accommodate it? Can you make it work type thing? Okay, next was, I mentioned before he wanted to do a granny flat. So I was like, well, there's a couple of things we need to keep in mind here. First and foremost, the rules that came in approximately 2 years ago, which allow you to rent out the granny flat independently to the primary dwelling. So they're technically called secondary dwellings, granny flats. So the requirements that allow you to rent out the primary dwelling independent of the secondary dwelling had a 3-year time frame on them. Now, everyone in the industry is basically saying, cat's been let out of the bag, you ain't putting that one back in. When it gets to the end of next year, September next year, and that end of that period, they're just going to extend it, or they're going to do something more permanent, like you don't need to worry about. That's the general consensus. But the reality is, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, the whole change that brought in those, or the whole legislation shift that brought about that change it came out of nowhere. Most people didn't see it coming. Like, it was shocking at the time. So we don't know what they're going to do. So I was like, yeah, if you want to do this granny flat, you want to get the plans done and at least the building approval locked in before September next year, so you can make sure you're locking in your rights under that legislation and you don't risk any changes impacting on you. Next, it was a traditional building character overlay site. So I was like, okay, well, really weird quirk in the planning scheme. It's so illogical, I know, but basically the way the rules are written, if you do some partial demolition work at the rear, some exempt partial demolition, so we're talking post 1946 demolition. If you're doing some, because it's a corner lot, so you can't do the demo beyond the ridge, side tangent, but anyway, going back, if you do some exempt demolition work, then the extension to the rear is exempt. There's a exemption, I keep saying that word, but there's an exemption there that allows you to extend to the rear where it's preceded by lawful demolition work. But if you don't know anything to demolish, you trigger an application. So you've got to find something tokenistic to demolish. And if you find something tokenistic to demolish, hold on to that. Don't remove this. Like I did another inquiry earlier this week as well. And I said to him, because he wanted to demolish everything at the rear of the property. Again, it was a corner lot. And I was like, keep a carport or just keep something at the back there until you're ready to build that secondary dwelling or that granny flat so that you can tap into that exemption. And then you don't need to worry about complying with character requirements in terms of materials, verandas on the front, recessed garages, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, that was a side note to him to say, don't go crazy with the demolition. Make sure you keep something there that's exempt to remove, that you can remove down the track to make sure that the extension to the rear is exempt from a traditional building character perspective. Now, next was pre-1947. So I had a look at the 1946 aerial photo and the house was not there. The block was vacant. However, when I looked at the 1949 aerial photo, the house was there. So I was like, oh, dude, okay. So you just need to account for the fact that that house could have been built in the second half of 1946 and therefore it could be protected, which is going to impact on your future options if you want to renovate or demolish and all of that sort of stuff. So we need, if that's on the cards, we need to investigate that further now and see if we can narrow down the construction date. Because yeah, that could be a major impact on you. Thankfully he didn't want to demolish it, so it wasn't an issue. Next was services. So I had a look at the service image and I think I could see like a sewer line or something running through the backyard, and I was like, yo, not my area of expertise, but you might want to have a chat to a civil engineer or a certifier just to find out what the BOS triggers are, build over sewer triggers are, to make sure that, number one, you can physically design your work to bridge over the pipes and not put pressure on the pipes and crack them and all of that sort of stuff. But number two, you want to understand the cost implications of that to make sure that you can factor in. You don't want to be sitting here going, yeah, we're going to stick to this tight budget for the build, and all of a sudden, I don't know, you're up for an extra 20 grand or 50 grand or whatever it costs to be able to bridge over these pipes. You want to know in advance. Next was siding variations. And my understanding, and again, not my area of expertise, do chat to a certifier about this, but I said to him, my understanding is if you're building within 6 meters of the front boundary, because it's a large lot, building within 6 meters of the front boundary, you're going to trigger a siding variation, which it's not a showstopper, and in this instance I think you've got a high chance of success because you're just keeping in line with the existing streetscape setting. Mackie D's next door, they're not going to complain about you wanting to go closer, etc, etc. But you need to understand you're going to have to go through that application process, and there's a cost and time delay associated with that. So again, if you're planning to start building tomorrow, you've got a few hurdles to jump through before you get that. Second last one was noise. So when I looked at the noise mapping, I could see it was within a certain overlay, and I was like, oh, again, when you get to the certifier, not my area of expertise, but I think they're going to turn around and say you're subject to some additional construction requirements. So maybe things like double glazing and all that sort of stuff. It's going to add a bit more cost to the project. So again, if you're looking to do it on a budget, you might want to consider that. And then last but not least, again, another cost thing that's not my area of expertise. Recently, there was even more changes to the NCC National Construction Code, and generally speaking across the board, it's increased the construction prices out there. So anyone looking to do renovations, extensions, new builds going forward, you're subject to assessment potentially against those new rules. So yeah, I said to him, you might want to go check that out, because my own renovation at the moment, so it is a pricey renovation, I'm going to admit that, to keep this in mind, it's all relative, but the energy assessor I've got for that job, she turned around to me and she's rung me a couple of times actually just to check. I can see how nervous she is. She's like, you have started the renovation, right? You have locked in the old rules. And I'm like, yes, calm down. And she's like, because I estimate it'd be an extra $100,000 on your job if we were to start again from an energy efficiency perspective, because we're on the limit in terms of a lot of glazing and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, $100,000, like even on my big budget that I've got for this renovation, and my budget ain't that big. So yeah, that's something else you need to consider, is the accessibility requirements. How am I going time-wise? I'm still under time. This is good. I'm going to keep it to 15 minutes so I don't get cut off by Instagram. But you need to make sure your hallway widths to accommodate the walkers, your Energy Star rating stuff, all of that extra stuff is going to change the way the house is designed, add extra cost, all of that sort of stuff. It's just stuff to consider. So, moral of the story, or the point I'm trying to get across is, like I said, none of those are showstoppers. Mackie D's going next door, at least you've got convenient burgers. The crossover, worst case scenario, you move it around the other side. The granny flat, you just got to get your skates on, you've got to keep some stuff to demolish. Pre-40, you get the idea. None of it is like, oh my goodness, do not touch this site. But all of it, especially the latter stuff, can add cost to the project. So it's stuff you want to know before you purchase the property. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here so I can keep it under the time limit, as I always like to say. Until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got three. Number one, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number 2, Brisbane Town Planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not Council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not Council. Number 3, what was my number 3? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all. Bye.